Hi, everyone. Eve Harow, Rejuvenation on the Land of Israel Network. And yes, in these days where we're having to learn how to change and to be flexible, you're going to have to get used to, at least for a while, having my show come out on Tuesdays. There's been a change in the schedule, and that looks like Tuesdays is going to be my day. So for those of you who were worried because you didn't hear my voice on Sunday, I think I'm going to be on Tuesdays, which is actually fine. Because Tuesday's a great day. Pa'amayim ki tov, when God created the world for the third day of the week, it said, and it will be good twice. So what can go wrong? I hope everyone is doing okay during these crazy times still of the COVID-19. Starting in a few hours, Israel's going to be pretty much on a lockdown for the next few days. So it hasn't been like I've been running around the country to begin with. Took a big trip a couple of days ago with my son to Tzomit Gush Etzion, to the Gush Etzion Junction, to go grocery shopping. As it turns out, it was lucky we went then because we only waited about 45 minutes outside, and we got there right when they opened to get in. And now lines are like 2 hours long with the coming closure. So we waited to get in, obviously. You know, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the scenario, right? Everybody's standing a few yards apart with their baskets and their masks on. And as I noticed that there was a little minibus that disgorged a bunch of people who went in, I figured those were the workers that were coming in to man the checkout counters. Anyhow, we finally got in and did our shopping. I have to say I was surprised at how beautiful the fruits and vegetables were. And I don't know if this is the reason, but I don't know, maybe Israel isn't able to export as much as we used to, as we normally do. Those of you who have been to Israel are always surprised pleasantly by how incredible the food is here. What not many people know is that actually what you're eating here is the second or even sometimes third tier of food, that the best much of the best produce goes out mainly to Europe, the export quality. And I was thinking that maybe we were getting treated to the export quality now if some of the markets are closed or they're not able to get the cargo there now. I know I've been inundated with getting requests to buy flowers because since the main flower market in Amsterdam has been closed, and Israel exports a lot of flowers to Holland. So what was growing here, of course, they're selling in the country. So I don't know if that's the reason. Anyhow, did our shopping as quickly as we could. Not everybody was listening to the rules, which was kind of upsetting. And I found it was an incredibly stressful experience. Also, I was wearing gloves, but then again, so my gloves just got all full of germs at some point, right? So, holding on to the bar of the shopping cart. Anyhow, it was just very stressful, not to mention wearing the mask for me was also started to get a little claustrophobic, but fine, you do what you have to do. These are small things. I was also thinking to myself that lipstick sales are going to completely plummet if this continues. But a lot of people, I imagine women mainly, but not only, are going to be totally into getting like false eyelashes, because if that's the only thing on your face that's showing, you might as well go with the eyes. And then I was wondering if anybody has done any research on some of the more conservative Muslim women who wear like the head wrap, the chador, where their lower faces are covered, and maybe it's keeping them from getting sick. Hey, you never know. That could be part of what's happening. Anyhow, got to the checkout, and there was no line in the checkout. The line is to get into the store, but once you get to the checkout, you fly through. They're not, because there just aren't that many people in the store at one time. And the guy rang up my stuff, a nice Arab guy who was working at the checkout. Many of the people working in the store are from the area around here. Otherwise, they wouldn't get jobs. The Palestinian Authority hasn't seen fit to create any factories or industrial zones, too busy taking the money in the pockets of their leaders. And so a lot of them work in Israel, in the Jewish communities here, either in building or in the stores. And there's been and will continue to be coexistence on that level for a long, long time. And most of it is just totally fine. Anyhow, so as I was getting ready to pay, I noticed that he was motioning to me. What it turns out is he was asking me, he's deaf. And so he was asking me to take off my mask because he reads lips. And so we had a little conversation about that, about how difficult it must be for him with people wearing masks. And it is, because normally he manages to read lips without people even noticing that he has, a hearing loss. And now he has to ask people, which, then they feel sorry for him, and it points out that, his disability, and it just makes him feel badly, something that he's really conquered and was feeling really secure about. Yes, we had all this in a 3-minute conversation. It's amazing how times like this, you just kind of like zip right into conversations that you might not ordinarily have before, because everybody's emotions, I think, are raw and are right there, kind of like when you're on, a flight. Remember when we used to go on airplanes? Yeah. So kind of like when you're on your flight and you figure, I'm never going to see this person again. And so, like people start talking about the craziest things. Anyhow, so we were talking about that. And he also is not from around here. He's from a community north of Jerusalem. A lot of the villages and Bethlehem, which is the main city right near where I live in Efrat, have been closed off from both sides. Bethlehem had a lot of cases of COVID, so the Israelis closed it off, but also a lot of the villages here are worried that some of the Arabs working in the Jewish communities are going to bring it back to their villages, which so far have been okay. So on both sides, there's been kind of a closure. Anyhow, so they had brought in he was on that bus that I saw. That's why the store opened a little bit late, because they brought workers in from a little bit farther away. So he wasn't so familiar with the store, but the main point was that it got me thinking that, there's things we're not even thinking about. Okay, so we're told to put on masks, and for me, so it was a little claustrophobic and a little hard to breathe through the mask, but there's a whole other element here for somebody who the fact that other people now are wearing masks means that he can't even communicate with them, and how difficult that must be for him. And I think maybe another one of the, I know we keep talking about silver linings, and it is getting annoying, but good comes out of even bad situations. And maybe this was one of them, a little bit of more of an understanding and of empathy for all kinds of different things happening here that normally we wouldn't have thought about. And the main thing about human being is to think about things that we wouldn't ordinarily think about. We think about the things that affect us. It's natural to do that. The things that affect us, whatever difficulty we have is the difficulty that we're living with. But to connect with people on a different level and realize like, wow, so this is what I'm going through, and they're maybe not going through that, but they're going through something else. And in that kind of way, it does tie humanity together. Every single one of us has something that we're dealing with, and most of the time we don't talk about it or nobody knows. And so this is just like, I wanted to share that because this is my podcast and I can. And it was something that I went through this week, in a week where not a whole lot was going on, as you can imagine. So doing a lot of Passover preparations, looking out the window to beautiful, beautiful days, and praying for everybody around the world that whatever lessons we're supposed to learn, we will learn from this, that when this is over, and it will be over, that we don't just revert to the kinds of behaviors that we had before. I mean, yes, there are some things that we want to do very badly again, like I really want to hug people, not just random people. I'm not going to start running down the sidewalk as soon as this is over and just hugging random people. But there's people who I care about very, very much that I haven't seen and haven't touched and haven't had close contact with already for a few weeks. And it's hard. And I know that you're all feeling that as well. So I can say this to a crowd that's going through the same thing that I'm going through. Anyway, the bulk of today's show is an interview with Marc Provisor and his son Yochai a little bit for One Israel Fund, an organization that in normal days, I'm the director of tourism, and I get to take people on buses, and some of you listening know because you've been with me, all over Judea and Samaria, and also the Western Negev, the area near Gaza. Marc was out there a couple of days ago, special permission from the security establishment, because he was delivering something that he was part of developing, the Armadillos, which are a blanket against shrapnel, something that you can open up. You can see in the picture that came along with the show, his son Yochai looks like a red bat, but that he's actually demonstrating the armadillo so that if rockets or mortar come in over from Gaza, because our neighbors do not quit, even with everything else going on, They can quickly protect themselves, even if they're in the middle of a field or in an open area, or an older person who's sitting in a wheelchair and can't so quickly run or even get wheeled to a shelter, or little children, someone in a playpen. So he had special permission to do that and to be down there. So I asked that we Zoom in. It wasn't a great audio because they were in a windy place, but I think you get the gist of what was going on. And also a little reminder that there's still a big world out there, and there's still some really rotten people out there who, with all that humanity is going through something together, still can't wrap their minds around, maybe this is a call to change their behavior, but where they're coming from, this is an opportunity to do even worse things, because it seems like in their culture and their religion and whatever they think God wants from them, this is actually a time to ramp it up. And when people are weak, then hurt them even more. So we still have to protect ourselves against that. And Marc is really one of the people at the forefront of doing that. And that's something that really hasn't very much been in the news these days because. But just getting a glimpse, and the meeting was Zoomed. So if you want to, you can also see it. They're sitting in a green area, and it just got me thinking about that area, how beautiful it is, especially after a very rainy winter that we've had. And everybody's so excited because the Kinneret, our big lake up north, is almost full to the brim, to the point where the dams are going to have to be opened, which is super exciting. And the water flowed down the Jordan River, which is, of course, where we crossed in with Joshua about 3,500 years ago. The river was a lot bigger than it is today. So it's kind of, and it was in the springtime, right, at its highest flow. So just to show how great the miracle was of the water damming up and us being able to cross over by Jericho. But I thought it was kind of interesting that, that maybe some kind of nice sign that that the river actually will get a little bit bigger this year if it turns out that they do have to open the dams of the Kinneret, because otherwise it'll start washing up on the shores and into Tiberias and over the water line. Total miracle that happened. But it also rained a lot down in the Negev, in our area that's the more arid area, working into a desert. And it's an area that's interesting because, biblically speaking, it's the Nachalah, it's the inheritance portion of Simon, of Shimon, who's given an area that is completely surrounded by Judah. Yoram Chazoni's fascinating theory that the tribe of Simon, because of their behavior with, first of all, avenging Dinah's rape, but later on in the desert, with someone messing around in front of Moses' tent and getting punished for that. So that Simon is kind of not in a leadership position, has to be kind of sidelined. And not only that, but surrounded by the monarch. And you see it physically in the land, where the biblical inheritance portion of Simon is actually surrounded by Judah. And that's over there, kind of in that area of the northern western, like middle kind of the Negev. It's an area that's interesting because it can be fertile if man gets in there, if people pay attention to it. It's not, there's some areas that are going to be green and going to be amazing no matter what. And there's other areas that no matter what you do, nothing is ever going to grow there, right? Yes, drip irrigation and all that, fine, all the modern stuff. But, there are just some areas in the world that are pretty much going to be barren. And then there's areas that could go either way, depending on how strong the central authority is, how much effort people put into it. And so today you have avocado growing there, and jojoba, and beautiful fields of wheat and of other grains, and it's really a magnificent area. We also know that down in the Negev, in the olden days, they were very smart. They didn't have drip irrigation. They didn't have some of the things we have today, but we have found areas where the land is sloped. So let's say they didn't get enough rainfall to grow anything, but what they would do is take an area of land, let's just say an acre, or whatever, for a reference point, and then slope all the area around it down towards that 1 acre, so that it got the direct rainfall, that little acre, but it also got the runoff from the hills around it. And so the JNF in recent years has also planted little groves of trees around there with the same idea that it's kind of in a low area with other areas running into it. They're called limans, which happens to be, that's actually the real word for port. Namal in Hebrew now is a port, and that's the ancient word for a port. And so anyhow, just language tells you a lot. So that's been kind of the idea down there now, and we've seen that from 1600 years ago. Now we've got the more modern ways of doing that, and that area is just so fruitful and so incredible. And so I really wanted to go there, but I couldn't go there. But at least we can go there a little bit virtually. And so if you want to check into the Zoom, which is on the YouTube version, then you absolutely can do that. So that's kind of it for today. Going to go into the interview now. Pesach, of course, coming up tomorrow night, wherever you are in the world. I hope it's incredible. It's interesting because what we need today more than anything else, and you see like the price of oil is dropping and all that, is brains, is people who can conquer this that we're dealing with right now, this terrible virus. And Pesach also was about conquering, right? When we were in the desert for those 40 years, we were totally babied and totally taken care of. And then we come into the land with Joshua, and part of what we have to do is, of course, conquer the land and settle the land. So we're still doing that today. But there's other things that we also need to conquer all the time, conquer our fears, conquer a lot of things, conquer whatever it is that is difficult for us on an individual level. And now as the world's trying to conquer this virus that is killing so many people. And of those of you, of course, who are listening, I hope that you're all well. That's a given. And that if you're not, or the people that you love are not, that they have a full recovery very, very soon. But as an Israeli, as someone living here, I know that there are many people in this country working very, very hard around the clock to come up with medications to cure people who are already sick. And of course, vaccines that people can be given so that they won't ever get sick. It makes me really proud. There's a lot of brains in this country, a lot of people in the medical sphere, but not only. And it makes me proud. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, if the world is looking to Israel also, I don't know if in the end we're going to be the ones, we, the great we, the royal we. That was a good speech she gave, by the way, Queen Elizabeth. She really showed, I liked watching The Crown, and she was good. The real one, I mean, that she gave a couple days ago. In any event, I just thought to myself, you know, nobody's looking like to Saudi Arabia or to Abu Dhabi or any of a lot of countries who are very wealthy and could have used their money over all these years to build tremendous scientific communities and R&D. But people are looking to Israel and would not be surprised in the least if the cure comes from here. And even the jerk who will not be named, who started the BDS, even he said, oh, we'll make an exception. If Israel comes up with a vaccine, then we'll be allowed to use it. I would so love to be in, no, because it's really not nice to say that anybody who wants to boycott Israel shouldn't be a hypocrite. Want to boycott Israel? Hey, boycott Israel. But we're not like that, and everybody knows we're not like that. And we would just be happy that nobody got sick, and maybe even that would help change their minds about Israel and really what an incredible place this is. But some people who have obsessions with bad and with evil, just nothing is ever going to change their minds. So we do what we can. Not for them, but for us. So I'm going to be signing off now instead of at the end of the interview with Marc and with Yochai. So I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you have very healthy Pesach. And even though most of us are not going to have a typical Passover with the people that we care about around our table, some of us are finding ways to do maybe a little Seder before, or somehow get together and maybe also enjoy something a little bit different because we have no choice. So when you have no choice about something, then you might as well reconcile with it in the best way that you can. It's either that or be angry and upset and depressed, and that just doesn't make anything better. So let's try, all of us collectively, to put as positive a spin on whatever we can. Obviously, the things that can be looked at positively. And once again, really from the bottom of my heart, everyone should just be healthy and praying for everyone who isn't around the globe. So this is Eve Harow, Rejuvenation on the Land of Israel Network. Once again, with thanks to Ben and to Tabitha. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the interview. Normally I say goodbye for now. I am going to say goodbye for now, but there is an interview coming up. So, God willing, we'll be back next week. Pesach Kasher V'Sameach from Israel. Hi, everybody. Eve Harow on Rejuvenation for the Land of Israel Network. It is April 6, 2020. It feels like it's March 42nd, 2020. That month finally ended. The 11th day of Nisan, 5780, exactly 37 years ago, I became a mother. It's my daughter Elisheva's birthday. So it's a very special day for me. Still sitting in my house here in Efrat because we've got the lockdown and the corona and all that. However, I have made contact with a good friend and co-worker for One Israel Fund. As you guys know, when we're not in this kind of situation, what I do is get out of the house a lot as a tour guide in Israel and specifically as director of tourism for One Israel Fund, and concentrating a lot on Yehuda v'Shamron and Judea and Samaria, but also in the recent years on the Gaza envelope, on the area, what we know as the Western Negev. And I am now Zooming meeting with the director of security for One Israel Fund, Marc Provisor, who is there with his son Yochai, who's his son, co-worker, squire, you name it, makes him look good. And for those of you who are watching on Zoom, you will see that they are sitting in a really beautiful area. Just the fact that they're outside is really something else. So, what are you doing there today? How did you get permission to go from your home in Shiloh all the way down to Gaza area?
Well, a lot of the security work that we do actually allows us to get out. We have actually special permission to go travel wherever we have to bring the equipment and to do the assessments that we do. And that's what we were doing down here today. We came down to bring down some more of the Armadillo protective shields, special piece of equipment that helps protect the people from shrapnel, from
it's like a blanket, right?
If you will.
It's kind of like a
blanket. It's like a really yeah.
Okay, it's not what you would grab if you're watching This Is Us and sitting on the couch and snuggle up with an armadillo. Okay,
not at all. No, definitely not. And,
okay.
So we brought down some of them to Ilan, who's the head of security down here. And pretty much that's what we were doing. There was a reason that we wanted to get down as soon as possible because of the idiocy that I don't know whether people are aware of it. Hamas wrote that if they start getting the corona starts getting out of hand there, and Israel doesn't help them get rid of it, they're going to launch rockets on us. So we wanted to stay a few steps ahead of the game and get whatever equipment we could. And
of course, coffee. That makes perfect sense. And have coffee. Okay, so, with everything, and everybody is obviously either very much focused or obsessed about the pandemic that the whole world is shut down for right now. And also in Israel, the kind of sidebar entertainment / grief that we have watching our government try and unform, whatever's going on that level. But I think a lot of people don't realize that we still have a security situation, that just because there is this pandemic running around, not just here in Israel, obviously, but in the Gaza Strip, in the areas of the Palestinian Authority, in the countries all around us. No one really knows what's going on in Iran, for example. Maybe a silver lining to this whole thing is that Iran will collapse. But we haven't moved our neighborhood. And our neighborhood is still one of a lot of tensions and a lot of enemies. And as you're saying, you use the word idiocy. There are other words that we could use. Makes no sense that Hamas, who also has to deal with sick people, is threatening Israel. So what has it been quiet right now on what we call the Gaza envelope? And for those of you, first of all, most of you know that when you listen to this show, you should have a map of Israel with you. Okay, so there's a lot of wind there. We're hearing like a lot of audio issues and drones flying and everything.
It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. My dining room is really beautiful. Also, so sick of my house. So has it been quiet down there? That area is as far west as you can get in Israel, near Gaza. So it's not on the beach. They have beautiful beaches in Gaza, as I still remember. So that area right around what we call the Western Negev. Has it been quiet in the last, let's say, month or so, since so much has been shut down because of the pandemic? What's been happening in that area?
You have to define what quiet is, whereas we thought what we're not seeing are the IED balloon attacks, the incendiary balloons. There was only a couple rockets just the other day. So relatively as quiet where we thought it was until after when we were speaking with Elon, we were told there were still attempted infiltrations, obviously not as to what it was, and the riots haven't been happening on the fence. But like I said, where we thought it was quiet, it's not as quiet as perceived, and that's what's going on down here.
So what I was supposed to do during one of the intermediate days of Passover is actually I was going to have a One Israel Fund bus trip to this very area. So this is about as close as we're going to get. We're doing it virtually through you. And the reason that I go down there as often as I can with as many people as I can is because this is an area that is so often in the news. And I want people to meet the people living there. It is not just a border area that has tensions and, as you said, infiltrations and tunnels and incendiary kites coming over, and that's not including the mortars and the rockets and the more heavy equipment that they do, of course, and also trying to kidnap soldiers or having succeeded at different times. But the people who live there are amazing people, and you just mentioned Elon, who's the head of security. What do you know about the people living there? Many people don't understand that. Being a border area, it is like a lot of Israel's periphery, a lot of farmland, which means kibbutzim, moshavim, people who are very connected to the land, people who have fields that border on the fields of the enemy. So what are you finding? Are you speaking to some of the people down there? What is their mental health now? What is their physical health right now as well? Are they also suffering from a lot of what's happening? Or are they because they're out of the big cities maybe? Are they a little less exposed to the virus?
No, well, first of all, Elon brought up an interesting thing because they live in an emergency situation constantly over here.
Right.
So we're set up they're set up for this. It's just a different type of emergency. We also met with the head of the council, and we got a chance to sit with some of the people. And whereas, yes, they are staying inside, they're only the people who have to go out do go out, and that's a lot of the farmers are out there. We're seeing work is being done, but it's definitely slower. Some of the people are also getting sick of staying in their houses. But one of the advantages of living in places like this, or like Yishuvim, like Eve Harow, like Shiloh, where we live, is that you can walk outside and see nature. I mean,
right.
Imagine that if you were living in a high building in Tel Aviv or even in Jerusalem, there's no really where to go.
Right.
But, hold it. There we go.
Okay.
Can we just come back? Okay, yeah. So there's no place to go, and but the people are dealing with it. Look, again, remember, you're dealing with a population that's used to, during when they're getting bombed or this stuff happening, they're used to staying inside or close to something.
Right.
So, I mean, they're dealing with it as we were told that in the Eshkol region, there are only 2 reported cases, which is great. It's not like Jerusalem or Tel Aviv.
Thank God. Okay.
So it seems a little lax, but they're flowing with it. They're doing what they have to do.
In some ways, they're probably handling the situation better than a lot of other Israelis because crisis is where they live and already have for close to 20 years.
Exactly. Yeah. So because they're used to crisis, they actually are handling it probably better. But again, it's a drag because it is beautiful outside. There's no one traveling around and going to some of the beautiful places. When we're driving down, we saw a lot of the really nice places that are there were fenced. The gates are closed.
Yeah.
So there's no.
Some of the nature reserves, the places where people go bike riding. You're not far from what they call the Badlands of Be'eri, which are some of the most beautiful areas in Israel to go bike riding, especially these special kinds of sand dunes and canyons that people have a great time. And there's also a memorial to Anzac there. I mean, there's so many things to do in the area. I think what's probably different for them, though, than in the usual crisis mode is that their communities are very tight. They have to be. Because sometimes that's all they have is their community. Because as you said, they can't travel around too much. There's rocket threat. And what's so difficult is probably now they are just like the rest of Israelis, just in their houses with their nuclear family. And they don't maybe have the broader support of the community that they usually rely on. And some of the communities I've gone down there they're such amazing people. They're a mix of religious and irreligious, which, everyone's like, oh, there's this huge divide in Israel. And then you go to certain places where everybody's living together, respecting each other. It's really a beautiful thing to see. And I think that maybe now I got out of my house yesterday to go to the supermarket. And one of the things that surprised, mask and gloves, everybody. Yes, mask and gloves. And they took my temperature when I walked in the door.
But one of the things that really surprised me is how beautiful the fruits and vegetables are in the supermarket. And I think that maybe we have a newfound appreciation for the farmers now, because when push comes to shove in a situation like this, we got to grow your own. Interpret that as you want to. And the Israeli produce is just amazing. But sometimes these people go out into their fields because the fields need maintenance. Is that a drone that we're hearing now in the background?
No, I think it's the regular.
Or is a swarm of, or a swarm of wasps that's attacking you guys? No, nothing like that. There's a few options when we hear buzzing. That's one of them. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that these guys are out in their fields, even when they're being attacked. I mean, here we are now in April, and this is the start of our harvest. And anybody who's familiar with the Jewish holidays, and I talk about this ad nauseum, knows that now we've got the grain harvest happening.
Hold it. Stop for a second.
Yes.
Okay. It was interesting that Elon said a lot of the farmers here they're actually getting ready to cut wheat. Now you would think not necessarily because wheat is ready, but because as the summer gets closer, they're worried about more of the balloon and kite fire devices that will burn their fields. So it's interesting, whereas they're going to start harvesting to keep their harvests from being burned, which is the reason they're going to be stepping up things in like
which is a whole other reason. Yeah. People sometimes worry about a heat wave or locusts, and here they are worried about it being burnt out.
Exactly. And
by the enemy.
The trees that are being pruned, and they're going through the areas where their branches down. We just came from right next to the White Shul. So we saw there were some Bedouin shepherds that are with their herds actually cleaning up, letting the herds eat all the
dry.
The vegetation, right? So that doesn't dry, doesn't become a fire hazard.
Right.
Life in the Western Negev,
Wow. But it's a crazy reality. Now, not far from you, you're in Yerim, right? So not far from you is the ancient synagogue of Ma'on.
We're outside of Yerim because a lot of the kibbutzim are not letting people in who do not live there to protect themselves from the coronavirus.
Right. Okay. So you're just outside of the nature reserve. But I know that not far from you, there is a mosaic of a synagogue from the Byzantine period, a 1600-year-old synagogue, a beautiful mosaic that was accidentally found. No, because I am so badly wanting to be where you are, because I can just picture it in my mind. And I go there with groups. If we have enough people, we say the afternoon prayers there in the synagogue where Jews obviously used to pray. It also shows that there was a Jewish presence in the Western Negev, even during a time period where Christianity was very strong in the land of Israel. There was a very small Jewish presence in that part of the country. Most of the Jews were up in the Galilee and the Golan. So it's a very special synagogue. It's definitely a synagogue. There's a menorah on it, which is the classic Jewish sign, the seven armed candelabra, and amulets were found there that Jewish women used to wear around their necks for protection from disease, which shows that certain things just never change. And you know what? If somebody told me that I could wear a certain amulet now and that would protect my family, tell me where to get it. So, there's certain things, people, sicknesses, trying to go day to day, trying to earn a living to do it.
Or something.
Whatever.
Put a Rebbe Nachman one on, something like that.
So over the years, One Israel Fund has left. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's on delay.
It's on delay.
Yes.
One of the interesting is the lack of tension, in a sense, in the air.
Interesting.
From that of the threat. I mean, we're looking at the border to Gaza on the other side, not from the camera. I'm on the other side, and there's usually is a tension down here, like, something can happen anytime or whatever. And now it's an interesting quiet, not necessarily a bad one. I mean, but it's very nice. It is very nice.
I think the expression in Hebrew is sheket midumeh, like it seems like it's quiet, and then it could not be quiet.
But no, it is quiet because of the lack of, there is definitely a lack of terror activity in terms of rockets and mortars right now. So it's kind of nice, almost normal, one might say.
And I'm sure there wasn't a lot of traffic to get there either. I mean, one of the side elements that we have now is that nature is to some degree making a comeback, right? And I'm sure we've all seen the videos of gazelles in the middle of where the ibex in the middle of a lot, and all this crazy stuff happening. A puma, I think, was in Peru somewhere, like crazy stuff. So nature is trying to do that. But One Israel Fund really focuses on Yudav Shimon and Judea and Samaria. But in the last few years, you've spent a lot of time in the area that you are right now. And how did that come about? And I know that we donated like a bulletproof or even a rocket-proof youth center not far from where you are in Netiv Asara, and all kinds of investments in order to make the lives of the people there, because this isn't just like a 1-month crisis for them. This is something that's been going on for close to 2 decades that they've had to live like this. So you brought down the Armadillo today. What else are you seeing that they need, that they're using, that we've already given? The jackets, the vests that you provided for the security chiefs in the area, has that been helpful for them over the past while?
Everything's been helpful for them. What they've asked for, what they'd like us to still focus on is getting more of the armadillos down. As we're going into the summer, God willing soon, fire issues are going to become another issue again.
Right.
Whether it be getting out the fire tow wagons or the various equipment to replenish that. So they definitely have their lists. Vests have been taken care of. We brought down a lot of emergency packs. We're looking to fill the gaps, and it all came about when they heard about the work that was being done in Judea and Samaria by One Israel Fund. The security chiefs actually called me up and said, "Hey, we need you guys down here." It's been definitely a few years, but thank God we've made a difference, and that's what we're very proud of.
I think it's not just a difference in terms of people's security, it's a difference in people's perceptions. Many of the residents of that area would consider themselves politically to the left, the kibbutz and the moshav movements. They were for leaving Gaza. They were for the disengagement.
So wait, I'll tell you. Wait, hold on. I'll tell you an interesting story. Back when we first started coming down here. Okay, so when it hit the fan, as they say, and we came down before anyone, and we were going, even though the mortars and everything, I came down, and you were with me also one of the trips where we got mortared. And it was funny going into one of the kibbutzim.
Is that a verb? You can get mortared?
Mortared. You can get mortared. Yes, it's a
verb
nowadays.
Okay.
Yes, or if I don't know the English, I'll create the word. But it was very funny when being introduced to the secretariat of this particular kibbutz, and the security chief said, we've asked from all the other organizations that have been helping out and everything, and the only people who actually responded to us, to the security guys, for the real stuff that they really needed, said, were these guys, these settlers from Judea and Samaria, this organization that works in Judea and Samaria. And it was very funny because this particular kibbutz was very much politically aligned to the left, and I thought it was actually one of the greater moments, because it showed the unity, the achdut, and I said, we're laying all politics and all this aside. We're talking about saving and protecting Jewish lives, and it was great. And then they took out, I still have it hanging in my room actually, a thing just said Am Yisrael Chai, without any borders or something, the full map of Israel.
The nation of Israel lives.
No, but it was very special, and they realized that, we are all one people, we're one land. Sure, we have our differences like everywhere, and it was great showing that unity, that there's certain things that go above politics, and that's caring for each other. And
absolutely.
It was beautiful.
Absolutely. Beautiful. I mean, I was thinking of that this morning also, because I saw pictures of people in Bnei Brak putting out cake and cookies for soldiers. And a lot of is made, again, about the tensions between the ultra-Orthodox, and Bnei Brak is a vast majority ultra-Orthodox, and that they don't send their kids to the army, and a lot of that undercurrent. And here we have a situation now where soldiers are going into Bnei Brak to help protect the people, to help move out some of the older people who are particularly at risk when it comes to this virus. And the people, they're coming out, and they've got what to do, and it's before Passover as well, and they're coming out and they're appreciating the soldiers. And maybe it takes a crisis, maybe it takes that in order for people to understand that we really are one nation. But every little block that we do, every little piece that we build is part of what we need to do here, because we're a country of a lot of different opinions, of people coming from a lot of different places in the world, but somehow we're all in this together. and we're the same ship. If there's a hole in the bottom of the ship, we're all going down. And so I think what you've done out there, like I said, coming from Shiloh and representing an organization that mainly focuses on Judea and Samaria, not from a sense of elitism, because other organizations wouldn't. Federations and other organizations ignored the Jews in Judea and Samaria. And so when Israel Fund, over a quarter of a century, had to be founded in order to at least try and even the score and give the parks and the ritual baths and obviously the security equipment also to those places. But here you've gone down there, and I think that's super important, and that we have to remember that. And with all the bashing and the anger and all of that especially my listeners, most of whom are not here in Israel, have to see that there is a tremendous sense of helping each other, of volunteerism, and of good feeling that's being built away from the cameras and away from the news, just on a day-to-day level. And just you going down there and also expressing the appreciation of others, of the donors who, you're not down there out of your own pocket. Obviously, everything that you give to them has been donated from people who very often don't live in Israel and are showing that they care about other Jews very far away. And all of these things that make us very, very strong. And I think it's just hugely important to remember that. Plus the fact that every time you go down there, you're putting yourself in a certain amount of danger as well, because you just never know what's going to be happening. So,
well, that's a mental issue that I have, so it's all right.
All right. So how far south are you going to get today, or this is it?
That's it. No, we're
That's
finished.
it?
We're gonna be on our way up to Shiloh right after this.
Okay, because for people, again, who aren't familiar with the map, and they should be, Gaza goes all the way down into Egypt. So, you can go all the way into the corner there of the Negev, of the Sinai, and all the craziness that goes on in the Sinai and of Gaza. But I guess in this time of year, we shouldn't be talking about going towards Egypt, because we're about to be celebrating leaving Egypt. So
Exactly.
we're going the other way.
We're going to be going the other way.
The other way. Right, and that's how we did it. Okay, anything else you'd like to add? Yochai, how's it? How is it going down there and participating in all this?
It's nice. It's refreshing to get out of the house, to go and help brothers in need, and just getting out, doing our thing.
Right, exactly. And for my listeners who don't know, you served an extensive time in Sahel, in the IDF, did some super important things. And I think it's worth mentioning also that there's a lot of our soldiers who are not going to be getting out for the holidays, that are going to be in for 2 months straight. And with all that entails, like wearing the same pair of underwear for 2 weeks straight and things like that. I don't even want to go into it, because I remember that with my kids. How is that possible? No, but really,
have to do that. There is water. They can wash them.
They can wash them. Okay, that's good. No, but really, the soldiers are not going to get home for the holidays at all. In addition to their usual work, securing our borders and dealing with, there are still things happening around the Palestinian Authority cities that have to be dealt with, and rock throwing, things like that.
You should know something. I don't know if you haven't gotten driven around. You should know that a lot of even the villages around us, but the Palestinian Authority, the police, have set up also their own roadblocks to keep people out of their villages, and they're worried about the Arabs that have been working in the Israeli communities, in the Jewish communities,
right,
spreading the virus. So it's very interesting to watch that each community has a guard to it now. It's like we're really all in the same boat. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So sometimes I think the things that we're most afraid of are the things we can't see. So, a lot of times we focus on protecting ourselves from the enemy that we can see, but this is one that is not distinguishing between religion and race or anything else. So it's going after everybody, and they should be protecting themselves. And they also know that they can rely on Israel for medical equipment, for medical care, for whatever it is they need. Again, despite the headlines, it's very, very clear the Palestinian Authority knows that they'll get whatever the help they need, not just because we want to keep ourselves from getting sick, but because that's what we do, and in Gaza also. So it's kind of an incongruous situation. Here you are giving protective equipment to the people living around Gaza, and Hamas is threatening to shoot rockets or mortars. On the other hand, the people in Gaza know very well that if they need anything, they can ask Israel on a humanitarian level, and we will give it to them, as we have continued to do for years. So we're not a bad enemy to have, and we shouldn't be the enemy to begin with. So maybe one day they'll realize that there's so much more to be gained by living with us together in peace than by trying to destroy Israel. But then I think that would have to a virus that would have to affect their heads, and we're not quite there yet. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and have a safe trip home. Talk to you later. Bye, Yochai. Bye, Marc. Take care. Thanks for what you're doing.
Ready for the most important Passover of your life? Tune in as Jeremy Gimpel talks about the secret patterns of redemption encoded in the Passover story.
We are for the first time celebrating Passover as we did in Egypt. There's no big Passover seders. There's no extended family, no friends. Each insular family is behind closed doors with a plague outside. And all we have is our wife and our children and our mezuzahs serving as our protection at our front door.
Check out the full show on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.